Welcome to the course C# and .NET Programming. In this video, we are going to see how to work with arrays in C#. So array is a homogeneous collection of data. Arrays are generally accessed with the index and the array index always starts with 0. The array can be one-dimensional, multi-dimensional. So one-dimensional will be called as arrays and two-dimensional will be called as matrix, and we have a special array called as jagged array. So now we will see the demo how to handle these in the C# code. And first we have to create an array. To start with the array implementation, first we have to declare an array. Next we have to initialize the array or assign values to the array. Then we can display the array. And the last one depends on the question. You can implement the logic to be executed in that array. So to declare an array, the first step to create an array, we have to use the syntax. I'm going to declare an integer array of size 5. So this is the syntax. So when the array will be created with the new keyword, then only the memory get allotted. And this is a single step itself. You can declare an array, that is an empty array. And there is another way you can create. First step, you can declare the variable. Second step, you can assign the memory location. So this also done. So first step is the declaration and second step is the memory allocation. And basically you can declare an array. Then you can initialize the array. So first you can initialize the array by just assigning the value in the index. But it is not a good practice to assign a values through the index for every values in the array. So the another way is you can use the array or declare an array and initialize it during the declaration itself. So I can have the values 1, 2 and 3. So this is the way also you can initialize the values in the array. But the better way is you can get the input from the user and dynamically you have to create an array and initialize the array. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to write a code, console.writeLine, enter the number of elements. So I'm getting from the user and in.parse console.readLine. After getting, I'm going to use a for loop. Using the for loop, I'm trying to get the inputs from the user. So I'm going to give one message to the user, console.writeLine, enter the values. So I'm trying to enter one value. That values I need to convert as an integer. So a of, so my array I have to initialize first. So I have to declare an array int b is equal to new int. The size of the array I got dynamically. So n is that. Now I'm going to get the values. So d of I is equal to in.parse console.readLine. So now the values you got it. So after declaring and initializing the values to the array, the next step is we need to display the values of the array. So for that you need to use the for loop. I equal to 0, I less than d dot length. So length is a property which will tell the number of elements in an array. So I plus plus console dot writeLine d of I. So now we will execute the code. When we execute the code, it will ask the user to enter the number of elements. So entering the values 20, 30. So we are getting the values from the array. And there is another way of displaying or iterating the elements of an array using the for each loop. So for each int I in A, D. D is our array. So we are using console.writeLine. But instead of accessing through the index, now we will directly access the element by using the for each loop, which will iterating through the array collection. So now the same thing I can execute. I can enter the element 2, entering the value, accessing using the for loop and accessing using the for each loop. Next, you can try to implement any logic. I just do the sum of elements in the array. So sum is equal to 0 for int I is equal to 0, I less than n, I plus plus, s is equal to s plus d of I. Like that, any logic you can implement, finding the maximum element, minimum element, and then sorting an array. So anything you can do with the implementation of logic. So I am doing just a simple logic to show you how to create an array and access the array element. So sum, and that sum I am trying to display. So we got two values, 10, 20. So the sum is 30. So now we'll move to the two-dimensional array, that is matrix. So how to create a two-dimensional matrix in C#? So int, to have the two index, we need to use the square bracket and comma, and then you give the matrix, and then followed by we need to give the new keyword int and give the size of the array 2, 2. Okay. So like that you can declare an empty array. Suppose you want to initialize with the value. Similarly, you can use with 0, 0. You can assign the value. Or during the creation itself, you want to create an array. Then you can use with int u is equal to. So since I want to create a 2 cross 2 matrix, so I am going to keep it 10, 20, that is one row, and the second row is 30, 40. It means 0, 0, 0, 1, 1, 0 and 1, 1. And similarly, you want to get the matrix dynamically from the user by specifying the number of rows and columns. So we have to get the input from the user, console.writeLine, enter the rows. So how many rows and columns I need to create it. So that I am going to give int n is equal to int dot parse console.readLine. I will comment all the code before here. So now we are moving with the two-dimensional matrix, creating the number of rows and similarly getting the number of columns. So number of columns. Then I need to get the inputs from the user. Now I want to input the values to the matrix. So console.writeLine, enter the values. So to get the input of the matrix, we need to use the nested for loop. The outer for loop deals with the rows, the inner for loop deals with the columns. So for int I equal to 0, I less than r, I plus plus, and for int j equal to 0, j less than column j plus plus. And getting the value, that is our matrix is, we need to create a matrix first. So I am going to create a matrix int square bracket with comma, a is equal to new int. The size is row and the column. So this will create an empty array with the rows and the column the user specified, and based on the row and column we are going to get the input now. So a of I comma j is equal to int dot parse console dot read line. So once the input is get, next we want to display. So to display also again I use the same for loop concept. So the inner for loop accessing through the column, the outer for loop accessing through the rows. So I want to display console dot write line, and I am trying to display a of I comma j. So now I will go through the code. The output, enter the rows, enter the columns, get the values, but it will be displayed as an array. I want to display as a matrix. So I just remove with console.write, and every element printed it has to put a space, and then end of the outer for loop I'll add the console.write line for the line break for the next row. So now we will execute and we'll enter rows, columns 3, 4. So I'm getting the array is displayed. And you can implement here various logics of matrix, matrix addition, subtraction, transpose of a matrix, finding the sum of diagonal elements, maximum, minimum. So any logics you can implement by trying to access the corresponding index of the array. And now the next type of array is called as jagged array. So what is a jagged array? So jagged array, we are not having the fixed number of columns for every row. So now it is a challenge how to create a jagged array. So to create a jagged array, I need to create again int. So I will just hide this. So I will command this code. So now I will go with the jagged array. I am going to create an array. So here the number of rows is fixed, but the number of column is not fixed. It is dynamic. So what I have to do is I can create an array with a double square bracket with the separate squares, and a is equal to new int, and the number of rows I know, but the number of columns I am not sure. Okay, because every row the number of column is varying. So this will create the number of rows. And now for every row I need to allocate the column. So I have to use with for the 0th row I need to allocate only one column. And then for the second row, that is this row, I need to allocate 3 columns. So new int 3. And the next one I need to allocate 2 columns. And the last row I need to allocate 3 columns. Sorry, 4 columns. Okay. So now the array is created, and the next step is you need to get the inputs for it. Okay, or the values to be stored in this corresponding index value. So we are using the for loop int I equal to 0, I less than. So as you know, the number of rows is 4 for it. Okay. So I can specify the property called as a.length. It will return me the number of rows available for the particular array. I plus plus. Then what about the column? For int j equal to 0, j less than. Because every row the number of column is varying. So we cannot fix the number of column here. So for that what we have to do is we need to specify a of I dot length. So this will help you based on the index for every row what is the corresponding column it get fixed. And now the similar procedure for the a of ij, we need to get the value by using the parse int dot parse I need to get the console dot read line. And I want to display it after processing it. And I add the for loop and console dot write, print the A of ij and put one space, and then at the out of it I need to use with console dot write. So please remember, whenever you use jagged array, use the double square bracket. But when you have your normal array with the rows and columns fixed with the equal size, then you can use with a square bracket separated with comma. Okay, so now we will go it, execute the code, enter the values. So first row, only one element. Second row, 3 elements. Third row, 2 elements. Fourth row, 4 elements. So I got the jagged array, which is displayed with fixed rows but variable columns. Hope you got an idea how to create arrays in C# and work with a normal one-dimensional and a matrix and the special case of jagged array. Thank you.